G'day folks, it's Chris Gilmore here from chrisoutdoors.ca and thehuntersjourney.com. And in today's video, this is really designed for people that are considering getting into hunting for the first time. Or maybe you took all your hunter's training a number of years ago and you're wanting to finally do something with it and you've kind of forgotten how to actually get set up to do this legally. So what we're really going to break down in this video are some of the most important things that you need to understand. So how do you get your license to start hunting? Understanding tags, licenses, and permits, understanding draws, understanding wildlife management units, and understanding the regulations for your area. So I'm basically going to do kind of like a meta overview summary of these key things that you need to know and give you a step-by-step list to get started as a hunter. And I'll just mention quickly that this is a video that we're putting out for free, but it's actually part of a paid training and community that we've designed called the Hunter's Journey. So if you're interested in actually having a mentor to help guide you through how to become both a skilled and effective hunter, but also a hunter that knows how to do it ethically and sustainably, and you want a community of support and experienced mentors to guide you through, I suggest you go and check out www.thehuntersjourney.com and you can learn more about the rest of the training. But with that said, let's dive into today's video. Now, first, I just got to give a really quick disclaimer here. So number one, I'm not a firearms instructor. And number two, I don't teach the provincially or federally regulated hunting courses. So really, this is meant to be just like a general overview of how to get started and what you need to know. But I want to just say that, you need to go and actually take your hunter safety training and get all your licenses and listen to whatever you're taught in those. So whoever your instructor is for your hunting license, for your firearms license, you listen to what they say first. If they say something different to what I say, then listen to them, not me. This is meant to be just like a helpful overview to get you started. It's not, make sure you just do your own research, do your own follow-up, and verify that everything that I'm sharing with you right now is actually accurate and true to your region. And also know that something that I say right now, regulations are changing, so it could change over time. So I just want to share that kind of first and foremost with you. And today's video, I'm in Ontario, Canada. So I'm going to share the process here in Ontario, Canada. But even if you live in a different province in Canada, or you live in one of the states, or even somewhere else in the world, this should still be really valuable for you in understanding how the overall system kind of works and the different components. They'll likely vary a little bit in your area, but there's probably going to be a lot of parallels as well. So this talk should help you just kind of sort it all out and make sense of it and give you a clear checklist to explore to figure out what you need to do your area. And I'll do my best to kind of reference how to do that as we go through. Now, I'm going to break this down in a number of steps to make it really, really easy for you. And I'd suggest that you take notes as you go through. If you're in the Hunter's Journey course, there should be a section in your workbook to help you take notes in a really efficient and organized way so that this information is very usable for you coming after today's video. So step number one is to get your hunter safety training. And this is going to maybe have a different name in different regions and different areas. Here in Ontario, we call it the Hunter Education Program. And you can actually do it for free online right now, which is really, really awesome. So in Ontario, if you go to ohep.net, that's ohep.net, you can actually take the course online and you can even apply to take the exam online. And most provinces and most states are going to have their version of the basic hunter training. And this is just a fabulous course. When I did mine, I took it in person and I got this manual. And this thing is just a wealth of really foundational knowledge to set you off to be a good hunter. And you're not legally allowed to hunt in Ontario without taking this course as a starting point. It doesn't matter whether you want to hunt with a bow or a firearm. You need to take this course first. This is the starting point. So that's step number one. So step number two, I'm not exactly sure how this works and it might not be relevant in the States, but you definitely need it in Canada and very specifically Ontario. You actually need an outdoors card. And this is the same card that you need to get in order to get a fishing license in Ontario as well. The card is only like $8. You might be able to you used to be able to get it at fishing stores, hunting stores, go into Canadian Tire and grab it. You can also get it online. If you go to www.huntandfishontario.com, you can go and get your outdoors card there. There's a very inexpensive fee, and then you're set up and you're ready to go. The card lasts for 3 years, and then you have to update it every 3 years. And this is kind of the basis on top of your hunter education program to really get started. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention with the Hunter Education Program, if you're not in Ontario, I would just do a quick internet search and say, put in your province or your state's name. So maybe you live in Arkansas, put Arkansas Hunter Education Training or Arkansas How to Get Hunting License. If you just put in where you live, plus hunting license or hunter education training, it should pop up with what your equivalent is for that. Now, step number 3 applies if you want to hunt with a firearm, meaning a rifle or a shotgun. You don't need this to hunt with a crossbow or with a compound bow or a longbow. And this one goes nationally wide across Canada. So it's federally regulated. So it's going to be the same no matter what province or territory you live in. And my understanding is it works very similar in the United States as well. So here in Canada, you need something called a possession and acquisition license. And this is basically like a card or permit that allows you to carry a long gun or a firearm with you, and it's specific to long guns, which are generally used for hunting. If you want to carry a handgun, you need a restricted license, but for hunting, you generally only need your possession and acquisition license for long guns, not the restricted one. If you want to hunt with a bow, a compound, a crossbow, then you don't need this. And how you would get that in Canada is you basically take the Canadian Firearms Safety course first. So it's a training or course. You usually do it in person. And then when you're done, you write an exam. And then you get certified, you get your card, and now you're allowed to actually purchase firearms and you're allowed to carry them for hunting purposes. Okay, step number 4 is understanding how licenses and permits work. And basically here in Canada, and again, this is very similar in the States, you need a specific license or a permit for each kind of species or group of species that you want to hunt. So for example, there's one license for small game. So imagine you've gone and done your hunter safety training, you've gotten your outdoors card. When you go to buy your outdoors card, you'll have the option to buy a small game license on top of that. And the small game license lasts for 3 years. And with a small game license, I'm now allowed to hunt squirrels, I'm allowed to hunt snowshoe hare, I'm allowed to hunt rough grouse. There's a bunch of species that I can hunt with a small game license. And that lasts for 3 years and allows me to hunt those anywhere that I can legally hunt. But with a small game license, I can't hunt deer, I can't hunt moose. So a bunch of our large game species, you need an additional license for that. There's an additional fee for it. And you can go to, what's the page again? Oh, that same page that I said before, huntandfishontario.com if you're in Ontario, and you can buy these licenses for your different animals. You'll have to look and see in your state or your province or territory where you get the license for that area. But just do a quick internet search and it should come up quite quick for you. But for example, if I want to hunt any type of large game in Ontario, I need a specific license for that species. So if I want to hunt deer, I need a deer license. If I want to hunt moose or bear or turkey or wolf or coyote, I need a separate license for those on top of having my outdoors card and then my possession and acquisition license. Now in Canada, this is interesting. So small game and large game are regulated provincially or territorially. But migratory birds, because they travel across jurisdictions, it's actually federally regulated. So this is the kind of one exception. If you want to hunt migratory birds, and that includes things like woodcock, it includes snipe, it includes waterfowl, so things like ducks and geese, then you actually have to get a federal permit. And you can often purchase these at post offices. You can also purchase it online, but you basically need to get your migratory birds permit. And you need to have a small game license to buy that permit to begin with. So if I want to hunt ducks, I need to go and get first my outdoors card, then I buy my small game license, and then I go to one of the federal avenues, so something like the post office or online, and I buy my migratory bird permit that now allows me to hunt ducks, hunt geese, things of that nature. Any of those migratory birds that travel. So that's the first layer there. Let's move on to step number 5. Now you need to understand possession and bag limits. And everything that I'm talking about, there should be a hunting regulation guide or summary for your province, your territory, your state that breaks down all of the specific rules for your area. So I'm going to scroll down here. I've just pulled this up online and it's on the ontario.ca website. And I'm going to scroll down the side here and find small game. And you'll see if I come and click on, let's say we'll pick cottontail and hare here, and I click on cottontail and hare. What you'll see with cottontail and hare is that I have a daily limit of 5, meaning I can harvest 5 cottontail or snowshoe hare in one day. And this is specific to different wildlife management units. I'll talk about what that means in a minute. But basically what I want you to understand right now is with the cottontail and hare, I'm allowed 5 a day and I'm allowed 15 in my possession, meaning at home, that's how many I'm allowed in my house, in my freezer, combined. I can harvest 15 total over the season and have that in as my actual limit. And 5 daily. And that's going to change a bunch for each species as you go through it. So that's how it works with small game. But with larger game, you actually need a tag, and a tag is actually a physical piece that you need to carry with you. And once you make your harvest, you have it in your hand and you actually put it on the harvest. And the reason that they have actual tags with larger game and they don't have bag limits, this is a stewardship tactic to make sure that they can control how many species are harvested each year and to make sure that we have healthy populations for a long time to go. So for example, if I'm out deer hunting, I'll actually have a tag that says I'm allowed 1 buck or I'm allowed 1 antlerless doe. Maybe I'll be allowed 2 or 3 in some management units. Where I live, I'm only allowed to harvest 1 deer a year. I have to have a tag on me, and as soon as that deer dies, I need to actually take that tag and put it on the deer. I punch it, and I'm not able to hunt another deer, and my tag is gone for the year. I'm only able to print that tag once. When I harvest a squirrel or a hare, though, I don't need to do that. I just need to make sure I'm not above my possession limit. But if you're harvesting black bear, if you're harvesting moose, if you're harvesting elk, if you're harvesting deer, all of those you'll need a tag, and you legally have to carry that tag on you when you're hunting, and it's specific to that one animal. So that's tags for the larger game versus the possession licenses for the smaller game. Oh, and I should mention that the possession and bag limits apply to migratory birds as well. So I don't need to tag every migratory bird or every duck I shoot, but I do have to stay within my bag limits each day and then my total possession limits. Now there's another piece, just to make this a little bit more complicated, but it's important to understand. Most of your licenses you can buy anytime throughout the year or within a certain time period. And you can even buy them after the season's got started. So, you know, halfway through the season, you can go and buy yourself a black bear tag, or you can go and buy a deer tag. And in most management units in Ontario, when you buy a deer tag, you're allowed to harvest a buck right off the bat, a male deer with your deer tag and your deer license. But there's a few species in order to sustainably manage the populations long term, where they actually have a draw and they only give out a limited number of tags for that species. So in Ontario, a few examples for that would be antlerless deer. So a doe or a female deer, you actually need to apply for a draw to get a tag, and you're not guaranteed to get it. The same goes for moose, the same goes for elk. And you need to know, if you want to have a tag to be able to hunt a deer, there's usually time periods associated where you actually have to apply for a draw by a certain date, and they only give so many of those out. So here in Ontario, I can go again to that huntandfishontario.com, go to licenses and draws, click on hunting, and then it'll show me what draws I can apply for. I can also click up here and you'll see that I can see what draws I've actually entered. And so for 2021, you can see here, I entered the antlerless deer draw. I was successful. So I have 1 tag for an antlerless deer, and it's specific to a wildlife management unit. It's specific to management unit 50, meaning I can't go to another part of Ontario and harvest an antlerless deer. I can harvest a buck anywhere, but if I harvest a buck in a different management unit, I've used that tag. I have 1 deer tag. So I can use it on a buck anywhere, or I can use my antlerless tag just here in Wildlife Management Unit number 50. You can also see that I applied for the moose draw there, but it says unsuccessful. So I did not get a moose tag this year, meaning I cannot hunt moose. So you need to understand the tags system and the draw system for wherever you live. Now let's move on to the concept of wildlife management units. And this is the foundation of stewardship with our kind of modern way for managing sustainable hunting. So each region is broken up into a wildlife management unit. So the land is kind of broken up into areas, and we try to keep a rough idea of what the wildlife populations are like in each one of those areas. And depending on the size of the population determines what your possession and bag limits are each day, or how many tags they actually give out. Now, again, if I've got a buck tag, for a deer license, I can hunt bucks or deer in any one of these management units, actually any one in Ontario. But my antlerless tag is very specific to number 50. And what's interesting, I literally live on the border of 54 and 53. So I have different regulations on my side of the street than on the other side of the street. Inside of this book, you can go and read the regulations specific to your wildlife management unit, but you're really going to want to check out the possession and acquisition, the possession and bag limits, and what the tags look like, and any other little kind of like sub-regulations for your area. That's super important to understand. And really, that brings me right into step number 6, which is to actually know what are the regulations of your wildlife management unit. So the regulations include things like the possession and bag limits, how long are the seasons, and what can you hunt. So for example, where I live, there is a 2-week season for hunting deer with a gun. and you can only hunt deer with a gun for those 2 weeks. But there's actually it's 2.5 or 3 month long season that I'm allowed to hunt them with a bow, and it has a start date and a close date. And that the length of that might be different in Unit 50 than it is in Unit 4 or Management Unit 4. So you're going to want to look at the specific seasons in your area, and they'll probably have a different seasons for bow than they do for firearms. And sometimes there's different seasons for rifles and shotguns and black powder rifles. All of this is in the regulation book. So there's also going to be legal requirements for things like, the size of ammunition you use with a certain species, and those might change from one region to the next. So for example, if I want to hunt turkey in Ontario, I'm only allowed to use shot size number 4 to shot size number 7. I'm not allowed to go and hunt turkey with a shot size number 2. This is the size of the shot coming out of the shotgun. It's only got to be 4 till 7. Or for example, if I want to go and hunt deer with a bow, there's something called the draw weight. And you have to have a minimum 39.7 pound draw weight for hunting deer. There's also regulations about the size of the arrow, the length of the arrow, things of that nature. So you're going to want to look at specific regulations around the ammunition and your actual firearms or your bows that are specific to your area. There also might be regulations around things like invasive diseases. So for example, chronic wasting disease, major issue down in the States right now. And we're quite concerned about it up here in Canada. It's not as pervasive, but it is around and it's potentially spreading. So there might be regulations around, like, if I harvest a deer, am I allowed to transport it to another management unit or to another province, to another state? Or maybe I can only transport some parts of it, but not other parts of it. So you're going to want to look at all the regulations. So I know this is a lot of information that we covered in this video right now. I'm going to just do a really quick summary of our 6 steps again and what you need to know to get started. And you can basically leave with this list and figure out what you need to get yourself legal for the next hunting season. So step number 1 is get your provincial or state hunter's education training done. Step number 2 is, if you're in Ontario, get your outdoors card. And if you're not in Ontario, figure out if you have an equivalent in your province or state. Step number 3, if you want to hunt with a firearm, so a rifle or a shotgun, you're going to need to get, in Ontario or in Canada, we call it a possession and acquisition license. It's going to have a different name down in the States, but you're basically going to get whatever legal permit you need to be able to carry your firearm. So that's step number 3. Step number 4 is to get whatever licenses you want. So you pick what species you want to hunt this season, and then you go and you purchase your license specific for that species. So whether you want a small game license, which incorporates a bunch of species, or a migratory bird that incorporates a bunch of different species, or you want a large game license, in which case it's species specific. So I get a deer license or a moose license or a bear license. And then beyond that, step number 5 is you need to understand the bag and possession limits, and you need to get appropriate tags if you're doing big game. So if I want to get a deer, I need to get a deer tag. And if I want an antlerless deer, I need to put in for the draw to try and get an antlerless tag, knowing only so many doe or antlerless deer tags are actually given out. And then step number 6 is just know the regulations for your area and the specific ones. So know what wildlife management unit you're in and know all those regulations. And like I've mentioned a couple times now, you're generally going to find all of this information in a hunting regulation summary for your province or your state. Should help you really break this down. Of course, if you're inside of our Hunter's Journey course, you can just jump into the online community and ask your questions, and myself and the other instructors are there to help you figure out and work through all these pieces on your own. We can potentially recommend people you can go to or places to go and get your licenses and help you troubleshoot these different pieces. So I hope you enjoyed that video and you found it helpful in kind of breaking down the plethora of information to get started. And if you're a beginner hunter that wants to get started and you don't have a mentor or a guide, or maybe you just really connect with kind of my approach and my values and ethics, I invite you to go over to thehuntersjourney.com and check out the community and training that we have to offer you. This training is really meant to take you right from ground zero of not having even a license, right up to, like, how do you learn, what gear do you purchase, and how do you get set up? What tool do you want to hunt with? Do you want to hunt with a gun or a bow? What are the advantages and disadvantages of each? We get into skills and tactics for different species. We talk about the mental side and even a little bit about the spiritual side of hunting, how to process taking a life. What do you do after you make that harvest? How do you get it out of the woods? How do you butcher the meat? What do you do with the hide? We really walk you through step by step the whole gambit so that you can feel confident walking out into the woods and be empowered that you have the skill set to be able to bring home meat to feed to your family and your community. So if that calls out to you, I would love you to be part of the community and be your guide along that process. You can learn more at thehuntersjourney.com. Signing off. Cheers.